Bryan Singer returns to helm the X-Men at their most darkest hour. Johnnie Torch reviews X-Men: Days of Future Past. First off, nothing could please me more than that it opened with Professor X's narration and the original X-Men music, and the opening X-Door, which is a very cool touch that harkens back to Singer's first two X-Men films. I always loved that, and was glad to see it return, despite the attention span deprivation of the modern audience, which has led to less and less opening credit sequences these days. The first thing that grabbed me is the visuals of the future. It seemed a good representation of the original comic. I was somewhat taken aback at how much older Kitty and Bobby looked. It's only been 8 years or so since their last movie, but they really seem to have matured. In a nutshell, everybody was top of their game. Great performances all around. Hugh Jackman, God love him, may he play this role forever. We get to see another side of Logan this time, as it's his compassion and not his animal strength that must prevail if he's to prevent this monstrous future. It was naturally a treat to see Patrick and Ian back as the original Charles and Eric. My favorite scene, without a doubt, is near the end where Eric laments all those years wasted fighting each other, to have a precious few back. I think the MVP has to go to James McAvoy as young Charles, though. He brought about a wealth of pain and loss that the character had endured that we never really imagined the stoic elder statesman version of Stewart's Xavier had ever faced. It's criminal that McAvoy wasn't even nominated for an Oscar for this role. Magneto was plenty villainous in this film. It's just that he's so zealous that you can see his point in doing the things he does. The cause is so important to him. It's everything. I thought it was a great scene where Eric tries to kill Mystique to prevent the future plight mutants would have. That's classic Magneto. It's not so much that he's a cold-hearted so-and-so, but the cause means that much to him. To me, the story's strength hinges on the battle to save one woman's soul, Mystique, who, without Charles' loving guidance, or even Magneto's radical determination, has become something of a loose cannon that's waiting to go off and unwittingly bring about the destruction of all mankind with her. Jennifer Lawrence has really taken this role and made it her own. Unlike the original trilogy, this Mystique is no nearly mute henchwoman, but a linchpin of the saga. Nicholas Hoult is perfect as a young Hank McCoy. I thought his beast-outs were very impressive. A lot of people have heaped no small amount of due praise on Quicksilver, and truthfully, the character in his prison break was a glorious showstopper. I was prepared to hate him since I figured they cut his ties to Magneto, but one line put it all into hilarious perspective. I didn't really like them just sweeping a lot of the first-class mutants under the rug with a big "they all died" scene. They didn't want to give an explanation as to each one's whereabouts, so they just broad-brushed them all. It's a bit of a waste, at least with Banshee and Emma Frost at any rate. I didn't really like the ending either. Why have Mystique pose as Stryker now? It seems they don't want the future to turn out as it originally did, but I'd have liked some things to remain the same. I suppose I had hoped that they might throw a crumb of explanation in the actual movie as to some of the continuity issues caused by the previous films, such as, why does Logan suddenly have metal claws again after the climax of the Wolverine? How come Charles is paralyzed again when he supposedly slipped his consciousness into his supposed twin brother's brain-dead body in the X-Men 3 after credits tag? But the continuity of the X films has been nothing short of a disaster, to be frank, so it's not too much trouble to try to piece together one's own personal explanation. And there are some seeming lapses of logic, such as how does Hank's serum temporarily repair Charles's damaged spine, since it wasn't caused by mutation? And it seems Trask strangely is more dangerous dead than alive, since his death is what progresses the Sentinel program by some unknown corporate entity in his name in the future, rather than his own personal scientific genius. But such are trifles in the big picture. To briefly touch on the rogue cut of the film, I liked the added early scenes with the future cast of Blink, Bishop, etc. And there are other extra touches here and there, such as the Beast Logan scene where Hank asks, "In the future, do I make it?" It's placed and paced much better in this cut. A scene where Mystique comes back to the mansion to woo Beast and wreck Cerebro is very unnecessary. The actual addition of Rogue to the film seems unnecessary as well, and I can see why it was cut. She's held prisoner, and we're told rescue attempts had failed until Professor X finally steps up with Magneto to effect the new rescue mission. I think the added Nixon scenes, minor as they are, push him into a bit more of a cartoony area, since his character was already bordering on parody anyway. And the ending. Oh ho, that ending. What a thing of joy to behold. I felt like a kid watching the animated series again, watching Logan going through the mansion and hoping to see all the faces that he in fact saw. Well, all except my man Nightcrawler. What do they have against him anyway? Cyclops is back. Loved seeing Grammer's cameo as the adult Beast. It was very moving to see the whole gang together again. To sum up my overall feelings, I'll quote Captain Kirk from one of my all-time favorites, The Wrath of Khan. We've been through death and life together. It's an apt description of this series, which fortunately, after 15 years, still seems to have its best days ahead. I'm giving Days of Future Past 5 out of 5 stars. This is Johnnie Torch once again reminding you, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.